Hello, good people. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're having a happy Friday. I hope you're enjoying your day. My name is Christian Barnes. I am the founder and lead financial coach of Do Better Financial. I would just like to say thank you for joining me on this Friday evening. This is going to be the last installment of the Breaking Down the Stimulus Package series on, we have gone through stimulus payments, unemployment, retirement. What was yesterday? Oh, I forgot already. What was yesterday? That's a good question. Don't remember, but it's student loans. Thanks, husband. Student loans was yesterday, and today is small business. So thank you so much for tuning in. I know that there's some information in here that a lot of people are very excited to learn. But just to give my normal disclaimer, this bill is fresh off the press. So as such, not all of the information that has been provided, not of the agencies rather, that are included in the bill have been able to catch up and edit all of their policies to conform with its requirements quickly. So that means that you're going to get a lot of changes over time. So I'm going to let you know about any updates or changes that I receive between making these videos. If you're watching them in order, I may contradict myself. That is why, because they literally change things the night before or right after I do these videos. Please refer to the proper agency for the latest and greatest information. So for student loans, you're going to go with the Department of Education. For the stimulus payments, you're going to go with the Treasury, so on and so forth. For instance, today that the information we're going to be covering, the government literally clarified it last night. So I was at a seminar offered by the SBA today covering some of this information, and even they didn't have all the details because they still haven't made them all clear. Well, we're going to go through what we've got. So let's launch into this. First of all, there are 2 loans available for you if you're a small business. However, we're only going to cover the one covered in the latest version of the CARES Act, which is called PPP, the Paycheck or Payroll Protection Loan, Payroll Protection Plan, right? So the other loan, which was called the EIDL, and I'm going to look at it because all these acronyms, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Hey, Erica, thanks for joining me today. We're not going to be covering that one. It was actually provided for in a separate CARES Act. If you would like for me to cover that, please let me know. But today we're going to be focusing on that PPP plan. Again, my disclosure, these loans and their specifics can be a little bit confusing. One, because they haven't been worded very clearly. Number 2, because they keep changing their minds. Okay. And they keep having to clarify things because they realized that it wasn't terribly clear when they originally rushed to write this bill. Hi, Daddy. Thanks for joining me today. So there are a lot of links in the description, and I mean a lot of links to different resources. Hi, Mom. Thanks for joining me. A bunch of different resources that will allow you to, thanks for sharing, Sheila, a bunch of different resources that will allow you to get the latest and greatest information available, whether that is the SBA or the other local sources of information that have been regularly up to date. So let's launch into this. What are the requirements if you want to apply for a Paycheck Protection Plan loan? You have to be a small business. How do we define small business? You have to have less than 500 employees. Sole props are included. So if you are a sole proprietor, you're included. It also includes nonprofits, independent contractors, meaning people who file 1099s, and possibly franchises on a per location basis. So when I say that, all that means is if you own like a franchise, McDonald's or something like that, you might be eligible for one of these. You're going to have to contact your lender to figure that out. There are also some exceptions for businesses that are considered small in their industry. To give you an idea of what that means, if you were a oil processing plant, right, you process crude oil and you had like 1,000 employees and you were in Houston, that might be considered small. There are actually ledgers and that tell you what is considered small. There's a link to what that looks like in the description, so you can figure out if you're considered small even if you don't meet the criteria I just mentioned. So again, small business, generally, small business with less than 500 employees, sole props, ARC included, nonprofits, independent contractors, and franchises, possibly on a per location basis. For your nonprofits, you do have to be registered as a nonprofit, as a 501c3 with the state. They do not clarify whether or not, if you don't have that designation, you can apply for it and then apply for the loan once you get it. They haven't clarified that yet, but it's probably good to be a 501c3 if you can anyway. All right, so those are your requirements. Last requirement, you have to have been open for business before February 15th of 2020. So if you just open a brand new restaurant on like March 1st or something, unfortunately, you're probably not going to qualify for this. But there's, again, going to be some very, some detailed minutia that you should cover with your lender, all right? How much can you borrow? Up to 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. And they're going to average it over the last 12 months. So let's do an example. If you average payroll in a month of $4,000 a month, thanks for sharing, Kelvin. I'm making these numbers up. If your average payroll is $4,000 a month, you could qualify for up to $10,000 in a loan, right? So that's how that's going to work. That's going to be the max that they would approve you for. If you're a seasonal business and you don't typically have 12 months of payroll, maybe you typically are open in the summer, but the cutoff of the concert and festival season is going to interrupt that. You could use the season before's normal payroll in order to show that, if that makes sense. Again, if you have any questions, please just put them in the comments and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Again, this is not my expertise, particularly because they just made it up last week and they still don't know what they're doing, okay? But put them in there, and if I can find the answers, I'll definitely get it for you. That's how much you can borrow. The limit, I believe, is $10 million. Obviously, that's a lot, so that would be on the larger end of a small business whose payroll would match up with that number, right? So whichever is larger. So if you had payroll that was more than $10 million, $10 million is all they're going to give you. Where can you get one? This is a great question. This is not a loan that you go through the SBA to get. The other loan I mentioned earlier, the EIDL loan, that one you have to go through SBA. For PPP, you go through local banks. So places like BBVA Compass, Wells Fargo, your Bank of America's, all those types of people and more. The list of all those people is in the description below too. The list of all that is going to be in the description, but that's where you're going to get these loans from. It's going to be your local banks and lenders, okay? How do you apply? As of today, April 3rd, 2020, they have allowed banks to accept applications. Caveat. Some banks aren't ready yet because they took so long giving them the details for these loans. So, for instance, I heard that Wells Fargo has delayed their ability to allow people to apply because it took so long for them to get the information. On the contrary, I got an email from BBVA Compass, which is my business bank, that they are accepting them, but you have to apply through they're going to send each business, you have to have a business account with BBVA. This is specific to them in order to apply. So they would have sent you an email directly giving you the link on where you can apply as a business owner who has a bank account with BBVA Compass, right? Lots of details. What I'm basically saying is it's going to vary, but theoretically they can start accepting applications today. There's one caveat to that. If you are a contracted worker, meaning you get a 1099 or you're self-employed, you're not able to apply for these loans until April 10th. Remember yesterday when we were talking about how 9 million people got excluded from their student loan coverage? If you're one of these people who's having to wait in line behind all the other businesses, I would like to lovingly suggest that you call your congressman. I'm not sure why they put y'all at the end of the line. I don't think that's fair. And I'm going to tell you why I don't think that's fair in just a second. But just know that if you're a 1099 contractor, you cannot apply until April 10th. That's when it will open up for contractors and self-employed people. Like I said in the comments, there's a list of the lenders that you can contact. If you want to go to the SBA page directly, you can go to sba.gov/Texas/Houston. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a coronavirus section, and they have a bunch of links. And one of those links is that list, but I have the direct link below. But if you want to see the rest of the information, you can go directly to the SBA website. Okay. And going to the Houston one, it might just give you a little bit. What the guy has done is, of all the ones that are approved, he's actually listed which ones are in the Houston and surrounding area. And when I say surrounding, it's kind of big. It gets into the Brazos Valley. In my personal opinion, it's reaching over there. So next, what can I use it for? Well, as indicated in the name, the biggest thing that they want you to use this for is payroll. So you can use it for payroll. You can use it to pay salaries and commissions, regular salaries and commissions, or tips for your restaurant, for restaurateurs. Insurance, so making sure that people can continue to have health insurance or whatever kind of benefits you normally offer. And it can be used for rent, mortgage, and utilities. That's going to be important in a minute, but that's what you can cover with it. If you pay for anything else with it, you're going to run into some troubles. These are your only options when you apply for the loan. It's going to have a few boxes. You can only select from those. And if you select something and don't use it for that, there's a good chance that the government's coming from you. I actually read that. It said that you could be prosecuted. Not the best idea. Okay? No government fraud. Let's not do that. When do you have to pay it back? That's a good question. I have 2 dates. I can't tell you which one is correct, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure it's 2 years. The issue is there is conflicting information all over the place. Some of them say 10, some of them say 2. I told my husband, I freaked out. I was like, I literally have 2 separate but pretty reliable sources on each side. One saying 10 and one saying 2, but 2 saying 10 and 2 saying 2. I'm hoping they're going to clarify some more of the clarifications, but right now we're going to go with 2, okay? 2 years. There is no prepayment penalty. I can't imagine why people do this, but I'm sure it has something to do with bank fees. Anyway, there's no prepayment penalties on these, and your interest rate is going to be less than 4%. This is another thing I've seen some contradictions on. Some things say that it's going to be 0.5%. That was the original intent of the bill, is that they would be 0.5%. The latest stuff that I've seen, a lot of it says 1%. So again, when you go to your lender, when you go to BBVA, when you go to Chase, I believe Chase sent out an email saying they were ready to, but don't quote me on that. Check with Chase, obviously. When you go to them, get all the details, right? Now, I'm sure this is the part everybody's been waiting for, because this is the part we've all been hearing about. There's an option for loan forgiveness with this one, which is huge. What loan forgiveness means is it basically turns this into a grant, okay? Which means that if you follow their prescriptions to the T, you can have the loan forgiven and not have to pay it back. Now, granted, I have not seen it in writing anywhere, but the way that it's been phrased is that you cannot have forgiveness for more than the original loan amount. So for instance, if you borrowed that $10,000 I talked about earlier and you have your little 1% interest rate, and you end up owing them $11,000, I'm making up numbers because numbers, right? And you end up owing them $11,000, they will not forgive the extra one that you've accrued in interest. That it would actually be $100 if it's 1%. Anyway, they won't pay that part. They'll only pay for the origination, the initial principal amount that you were loaned. So you're no matter what, you're going to have to cover whatever it is when your loan comes due, if that makes sense. Okay. This information is going to keep coming in, so keep checking in. I'm going to keep posting stuff as soon as I get more clarification. How do you get your loan forgiven? How do you qualify for that? You have to have the same head count, meaning the same number of full-time and part-time employees for 8 weeks following the distribution of your loan. Okay. You might be saying, what if I've already furloughed, laid off my employees? You have until June 30th of 2020 to get to the same level you had before the the event. I believe the date they're using is the end of 2019. Don't quote me on that either. I saw one that said before the disaster was declared, which was like March 13th, and I saw some other stuff. Obviously, they were talking about saying that your business had to have been started in February. It may be the last date, whatever the head count was at the last date of your tax filing. I wish there was more clarity, alas. As soon as I know, I shall let you know. But that's what it says. So you have to maintain your same head count for 8 weeks, right? They're giving you 2.5 times payroll. So they expect you to pay these people for 2 full months, right? And you have until June 30th to do it to still qualify. You have to use at least 75% of the loan, the original loan amount, to pay payroll and payroll costs. You have to use 25% or less on the rent and utilities, okay? So if you're a small business owner that owns like a bakery, right, and you're renting a space, you have to make sure that 75% of the money that you get from this loan goes to paying your bakers and your cashiers and whoever else you pay, right? You have to make sure that money goes to that. You can only use 25% of it to pay for, utilities like lights, water, and the rent itself, okay? That is one of the stipulation that will allow you to get your loan forgiven. If you don't do what they ask by the time period they've requested, not all of your loans will be forgivable. So they'll reduce the amount by which your loan is forgivable. How much? They didn't say. So at the period when you get to June and it's time for you to apply for forgiveness, you will have to apply for forgiveness. That is a really weird phrase. Glad to say Jesus. You have to apply for forgiveness, and you're going to have to give an accounting of what you've done with your money, right? And obviously, again, if you perjure yourself, legal, jail, fines, all the things. Don't do that, okay? So if you're going to get this loan and you want to get it forgiven, you have to maintain the same head count for 8 weeks. And if you furloughed people already, you have to get the same amount of people hired back and then pay them for 8 weeks using this money by June 30th, okay? They have to be restored to whatever their original. It doesn't have to be the same people. I heard that earlier. Like if somebody moved in the middle of all of this, or somebody decided not to come back, if somebody passed away, something like that, it doesn't have to be the same humans working in your business. You just have to have the same number of humans. Thanks for the like, Miss Brenda. So hopefully that's clear, as clear as I can make it. So the next question, can I get an EIDL, an economic injury disaster loan, in addition to a PPP? Yes, but you can't claim coverage for the same costs. So these loan applications look a little similar. They're going to have check boxes asking what you want the loan to cover. If you've already applied for an EIDL, they've been available for a little while, and you asked to cover payroll, then you probably can't use one of these, right? If you said you were going to use your EIDL to cover rent and utilities, then you could theoretically get a PPP to cover payroll. Does that follow? If you already have an application in and you need to change it, you're definitely going to have to contact your loan servicer about that. But technically, you can have both. Can I defer payroll taxes and take this loan? So again, one of the other CARES Act provisions allowed you to defer federal payroll taxes, I believe for 2 years. So it wasn't that you would never pay payroll taxes. You would just be able to pay them over the course of 2 years instead of trying to rush to pay them all back right away. So no. If you have taken the payroll tax deferral, you cannot get a PPP. Those two things are mutually exclusive. If you want to switch, if you realize you crunch your numbers and you realize the PPP is a better deal for you than the tax deferral, you're going to need to talk to your accountant, you're going to need to talk to a lawyer, and you're going to need to talk to your lender. Okay? This is the things you need to do to make sure that you don't get in trouble with the IRS and the federal government. Okay? Here's a big question. Should you bother applying for this thing? Because in reality, a lot of people are eligible. So like, and my first thought was, this is great. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be transparent with y'all. My first thought was, this is great. Places like barbershops and like independent barbers, independent nail techs, nail salons, right? Uber drivers, because obviously they don't have as much work because nobody's going to work. All of these people technically are eligible for these loans. And if businesses get them and they continue to pay them for at least 2 months, maybe we can staunch the blow of some of the economic woes that everybody is experiencing, right? That was my first thought. This could be great, right? As long as they do what they're supposed to, they'll be able to get it forgiven and they're not going to be saddled with a bunch of debt. Here's the truth. A lot of small businesses end up in tax trouble, okay? And the reason they end up in tax trouble is because they're really, really bad at running their own books. I'm being honest with you. I have multiple clients who have had issues with payroll taxes in particular, okay? So my concern is that people who have had issues with their books and maintaining them properly in the past could find themselves in trouble now, and then they will end up on the hook for some or all of these loans, which that could end up driving them out of business. Because if the number that I have is correct and the term is 2 years, if you don't see the exact same clientele return to the point where you're able to pay this thing off, whatever it is you end up owning in 2 years, you could end up having to refinance it and get into a mess, right? It could be not great for you. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to ask you to do what Jesus told us to do. Count up to cost. Know exactly what is required of you before you sign the line for one of these loans. Know what you're on the hook for if you don't follow these rules to a T, and make sure you crunch those numbers. Make this decision full aware and wide-eyed as humanly possible. Do not allow the excitement of, oh, the money is running out, I got to hurry up. I'm sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that part, but there is technically a limit, right? This money's technically finite. It's a lot. It's like $349 billion, but that could go quickly because it's the whole country, right? So obviously the SBA is encouraging people to apply for these loans as quickly as humanly possible, just so they can get a piece, right? Of this finite pie. Hey, Deanna, thanks for watching. So if you're going to apply for one of these loans, before you sign that dotted line, make sure you know exactly what you need to do to get the whole thing forgiven, or as much as humanly possible. Know what you're on the hook for if you don't do exactly what they say. And if you don't think you can cover that, don't do it. Close your doors and start from scratch. You'd be better off than getting into trouble with the federal government because you can't cover a loan that was supposed to help and ended up hurting you. So please count up these costs to make sure you know what you're getting into. Talk to your lenders. I know it may be hard to get through to them. Try. I'm also going to encourage everybody. I am in Representative Lizzie Fletcher's district in Houston. It's District 7, and she has been really amazing. I don't know if anybody else's congresswoman is wonderful, but I'm probably going to vote for this woman forever because she's been great. She has hosted and she has coordinated with the SBA, and they are hosting daily SBA interview sessions, SBA frequently asked question sessions to walk you through not just the PPP loans, but also the EIDL loans, as well as the payroll tax deferral, right? They're walking you through some of that stuff with details. They're answering questions live. I sent in a question, and I'm sure a lot of people sent in questions, and they were similar. They asked those questions in the end. If you're able to get on one of those, there is... in one of the links below, and I'm going to verify which one it is, but in one of the links below, excuse me for closing my eyes, I was trying to think, it didn't come. In one of the links below, there's going to be the SBA literally has these sessions running like all day. Like I think they have one at 9, noon, 3. I feel like 9, noon, and 3. I think they have 3 a day. And when I saw them, they were booked all the way out until April 29th. So get as much information as humanly possible from them, and then get specifics from your lender, whoever that is. There's a good chance your bank is on that list. I believe there were like 700 and some odd banking institutions. Also, the Bank of Buckholz was on there. Shout out to my grandma's hometown. So just so you know, like I said, it covers a wide swath of area. It's not just Houston proper. But that said, clarify, get answers. Do not sign this until you know what you're getting into. Okay? This is my request of you. So, to recap, if you're a small business, you have less than 500 employees, you're a sole prop, nonprofit, independent contractor, or a franchise based on a per location basis, you are eligible for this as long as you were open before February 15th of 2020. You can borrow up to 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. You can get this from one of your local banks or credit unions. You can apply starting today if you're one of those bigger businesses I talked about. If you are a self-employed or a 1099 contractor, you can apply starting on April 10th, all the way through June 30th or until the funds have been exhausted. There's going to be a list of the lenders that are available below. You can use it for payroll, salaries, commissions, insurance, rent, mortgage, and utilities. You do have to pay it back, particularly if you don't qualify for forgiveness. The term, as far as I can tell, is 2 years. There's no prepayment penalties, and the interest rate is going to be less than 4%. So far, I've seen it's 1. If you want loan forgiveness, you have to spend at least 75% of the loan amount on these payroll expenses and less than 25 on that other thing. And you have to get your staffing level back to where it was at some indeterminate time, unfortunately. But we're just going to assume before you shut down, get it back to where it was then, before June 30th, in order to qualify for full forgiveness. And if you don't, they will reduce your forgiveness amount by some amount. You can get an EIDL with it, as long as you don't cover the same costs. You cannot defer payroll taxes and get a PPP. You have to choose one. If you want to switch, you need to talk to a lawyer, an accountant, and your lender. And before you apply, count up the cost. This is going to wrap up a very long week of breaking down this stimulus package. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. You can email me at Christian, like the religion, at Do Better Financial, or you can send me a note here on Facebook or on my Facebook page, Do Better Financial. You can also, if you missed part of this video and you can't figure out how to make it work, you can subscribe to the Do Better Financial YouTube page. Hey, Angie, thanks for sharing. You can subscribe to the Do Better Financial YouTube page. All of the videos will be posted there. I will be back next week. We're going to be covering some more information. Not this much, because your girl is tired. But we're going to cover some more information about how we can go ahead and power through this really difficult season. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.